Welcome back to the channel, the only place where that little glass jar of old coins collecting dust in the corner of your house, yeah, that exact one, could become the ticket to an unexpected fortune that changes your life completely. I am Harry, and today we are going to dive deep into the fascinating world of something absolutely every single one of us has held in our hands at some point, the famous wheat penny, the classic Lincoln cent. But, look, make no mistake, we are not here to talk about the ordinary pocket change you leave at the grocery store checkout or lose forever between your car seats. Today, I am going to reveal the best-kept numismatic secrets behind two highly specific, deeply historical dates that the giants of the collecting world are desperately hunting for. Dates that, if they hide the right manufacturing error or have miraculously managed to survive in absolutely perfect condition, go from being worth a few miserable pennies to sparking fierce, no-holds-barred bidding wars at the most exclusive auction houses on the planet. If this is your first time here, do yourself a massive favor and click that subscribe button right now, because the classified, insider information I am about to hand you, well, it is exactly what separates a common rookie from a master collector who knows how to spot a treasure. Go grab your coins, get a good jeweler's magnifying glass, set up your lighting, and brace yourself, because what you are about to discover in the next few minutes will permanently change how you look at the money in your pocket. Let's begin. 1945 wheat penny. Now, let us move our historical time machine forward into an era of overwhelming emotion, relief, and global transformation. The year is 1945. The most destructive, visceral war in human history is finally grinding to a staggering, monumental halt. The fierce battles across the European theater and the brutal island-hopping campaigns in the Pacifics have ended. Millions of exhausted but victorious soldiers are packing onto transport ships, finally heading back home to American shores to rebuild their lives, start families, and ignite an economic boom, the likes of which the world has never seen. And circulating through the eager hands of these returning heroes, buying them their first cup of coffee or a newspaper announcing the ultimate victory, is the 1945 wheat penny. But here is the absolutely astonishing, cinematic secret about the 1945 cent that most casual collectors do not even realize. You are not just holding a coin. You might literally be holding a piece of the battlefield. Because copper was still strictly regulated in the immediate aftermath of the war, the mint could not return to its traditional pre-war bronze formula. Instead, in a brilliant feat of wartime logistics and recycling, the 1945 pennies were struck using shell-casing bronze. The United States military collected millions of spent brass artillery shells and bullet casings from the battlefields and training grounds, shipped them back home, melted them down in massive furnaces, and mixed them with a small amount of pure copper. When you hold a 1945 wheat penny, you are physically holding the recycled metal of a shell that may have been fired on the beaches of Normandy or in the dense jungles of Iwo Jima. It is a piece of living, breathing military history stamped with the face of Abraham Lincoln. Now, just like the 1941 penny, the mints produced well over 1 billion of these shell-casing cents in 45 to satisfy the cash-hungry, booming post-war economy. A regular brown, heavily circulated example is a fascinating piece of history, but financially, it will only yield you maybe 15 cents to a couple of dollars. The extreme, life-changing value of this specific year is almost entirely dependent on a miracle of condition and preservation. Because these coins were made from salvaged, slightly different brass and copper mixtures, they often struck poorly and toned in strange, sometimes unattractive ways over the decades. The metal was slightly harder, meaning the intricate details, like the fine lines in Lincoln's hair, his cheekbone, and the delicate individual lines of the wheat stalks on the reverse, were often weak right straight out of the press. To find a 1945 wheat penny that possesses what experts call a full strike, where every single microscopic detail is razor sharp and perfectly defined from the highest peak of the design to the deepest valley, is an incredibly rare event. But when you combine a perfect, powerful strike with a flawless, blazing red mint state preservation, an MS-67 or an unbelievable MS-68 red, You are looking at an absolute numismatic unicorn. An immaculate 1945 red penny is a coin that somehow escaped the chaotic, jubilant ticker tape parades, avoided the massive post-war spending spree, and hid in the darkness for decades. When professional graders at NGC or PCGS encounter one of these flawlessly preserved shell casing cents, the population reports show exactly how rare they are. There are only a handful of perfect specimens known to exist in the entire world. So when you are looking through your jar of coins, do not just glance at the date and toss it aside. Look at the strike. Look for that mesmerizing, unbroken original red luster. If you hold a pristine 1945 cent under your lighting and it shines back at you perfectly, you are not just holding 15 cents. You are holding an elite, high-value masterpiece forged from the ashes of the Second World War. 1941. Wheat penny, I want you to transport yourself with me to a year that echoes with an incredibly profound, almost haunting weight in American history. We are stepping back into the year 1941. The United States is standing right on the precipice of a monumental global shift. For most of the year, the country is officially at peace, yet the distant rumblings of the Second World War in Europe are growing louder every single day. Factories are beginning to hum with the intense energy of defense production, and the massive mechanical presses at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints are relentlessly churning out millions of beautifully struck, pure bronze Lincoln pennies. The men and women operating these machines have absolutely no idea that by December of this very year, the devastating attack on Pearl Harbor will completely shatter their reality, plunging the nation into the darkest and most visceral conflict of the modern era. Because of this impending war, the 1941 wheat penny represents the absolute final year of an era, the last standard peaceful production of the pre-war bronze composition before copper became a highly restricted, critical military asset needed for battlefield communications and munitions. Now, because the mints produce these coins in staggering massive quantities to fuel a rapidly expanding pre-war economy, a heavily circulated 1941 penny, one that is worn down, darkened by time, and smoothed out by decades of changing hands, is only worth of about 15 to 50 cents today. But as we know, the true masters of numismatics do not care about the average. They care about the extraordinary. The first secret to unlocking a massive fortune with the 1941 penny lies in what the industry calls the red mint state. You have to understand that copper is an intensely wild and highly reactive metal. The exact millisecond this coin was struck in 1941, it possessed a blazing, fiery red, almost mirror-like brilliance. Instantly, the oxygen in the air and the microscopic oils from human hands began a relentless chemical mission to oxidize that metal into a dull brown. To find a 1941 penny today that has survived more than 80 years perfectly sealed away, untouched by the atmosphere, and retaining its flawless original red luster, is like finding a perfectly preserved time capsule from the eve of the Second World War. When an immaculate MS-67 red specimen hits the grading floor at PCGS or NGC, it stops experts in their tracks and commands thousands of dollars. But there is a second, even more thrilling treasure hiding within this date, the legendary double die obverse, or DDO. In the frantic, high-pressure environment of the 1941 minting process, human error was inevitable. When the steel hub was forcefully impressing the design onto the working die, it occasionally shifted just a microscopic fraction of a millimeter between heavy strikes. This created a die with a distinct, ghostly secondary image. Grab your magnifying glass and look extremely closely at the motto, "In God We Trust," in the word liberty, on the front of your 1941 penny. If you see a clear, undeniable doubling, a thick, staggered, or split lettering where the letters seem to have a twin shadow cast right alongside them, you have just struck absolute gold. This is not just a worn coin. It is a highly documented, deeply sought-after mechanical error. A strong 1941 DDO in a high grade, it is the kind of breathtaking discovery that turns a simple piece of pre-war copper into a legendary multi-thousand-dollar centerpiece for elite collectors worldwide.